Well, at a very interesting juncture when you decided to leave Microsoft as its chair and leave the corporate world behind at the peak of your corporate career. Why did you decide to leave? What was that pivotal moment?
When I joined Microsoft, which was in early January 2004, I set out some goals for the company, which is we need to achieve at least $1 billion in revenues. We need to be the largest geography for Microsoft. We should be the most respected company in India. We didn't get there. We got to most respected MNC in India. And by 2010, those things had happened. So I wasn't enjoying the next phase of maturity as much. And as Steve Jobs famously said in his commencement speech, if for too many days you wake up in the morning and you say, oh, I'm not enjoying what I do, it's time to do something different.
Any thoughts on what OpenAI partnership with Microsoft can look like? Especially because, OpenAI just launched their India office and they're building a team here now. And they launched a product also catering just
the 300 rupees per month subscription. Satya saw the opportunity with the OpenAI. I saw the opportunity to disrupt Google search and jumped on it. That's been great for OpenAI and it's been great for Microsoft.
The world order is changing, right? And there is that sense in the air. We are seeing rapid innovations happen in China and they've progressed so much. If you just compare progress that's happened. So why do you think, why China and why not somewhere else?
The 20th century was the American century and the 21st century is the Chinese century. It's hard to make these predictions with any confidence, but it does seem that America is generally not as dynamic, not as welcoming of foreigners as it was in my time. China is very much on the ascendant still. They're no longer just doing copycat things. Their firms are genuinely innovating in every field that matters to the 21st century.
Or anyone in the world can claim that they have a handwritten note from Bill Gates claiming that he was wrong. Give us the backstory and give us the context. Hello and welcome everyone to the India Opportunity Show. I'm your host Shrishti and today I'm thrilled to introduce my guest to you, Mr. Ravi Venkatesan, one of India's most respected business leaders and change makers. Ravi has worn many hats. He was the chairman of Microsoft in India and helped scale its operations to becoming second largest in the world. Then he helped Infosys navigate a crisis when he joined the board and was there for 7-8 years. And he's also been on the boards of companies like Bank of Baroda as well as Hitachi. Today, he's the force behind two remarkable institutions. One is called GAME, Global Alliance for Mass Entrepreneurship. The other one is called GEEP, Global Energy Alliance for People and Planet. What makes Ravi unique is not just his ability to build remarkable institutions, but his ability to reinvent himself and also his mindset. From corporate leader to social entrepreneur, he's consistently asked himself these questions. What's my larger purpose in life? What does success and money really mean? How do we imagine a world which will be reshaped by AI, and how India can achieve some of the biggest opportunities that lie in front of us. In this conversation, we go deep into Ravi's extraordinary journey. From a handwritten note that he once received from Bill Gates himself that said, "I was wrong," to his candid views on AI, jobs, leadership, purpose, and mindset. If you're an entrepreneur, investor, or someone who's exploring the next chapter of their life, this episode is a must-watch for you. Hope you enjoy watching. Good morning, Ravi. Welcome to the India Opportunity Show.
Hi, Shrishti. I've been waiting for today quite some time.
It's absolutely my pleasure and honor to host you. Ravi, you've done so many fantastic things in your career. Honestly, I was really impressed by the depth and the diversity of the initiatives that you've launched and also pioneered in so many different ways. And like we were just discussing, people remember you as the chair of Microsoft, but you've had such a fantastic career even before and after that. Would you like to start with the impact report that you were just talking to me about and share some numbers? Because that's the kind of impact I want our audience to understand you've had on different lives.
Thank you. First of all, what I think you're talking about for the audience is the Global Energy Alliance for People and Planet. We call it the Global Energy Alliance. It's something that we set up about 3 years ago. And it's a not-for-profit, which is focused on ending energy poverty for 1 billion people who today have no electricity. They just burn wood or biomass of some sort, and most of them are in Africa, but there are plenty in India and other parts of the world as well. And we want to help countries accelerate their energy transition. This morning, as it turns out, at 5 a.m., when I woke up and checked my phone, which is a bad habit, I found that the impact report for 2024 had just come in, and it was heartwarming because the numbers are quite significant. Since we've been at it for a few years now, 3.5 years. So India alone, the jobs impact is nearly 2 million people whose livelihoods have been improved. 50 million people whose access to electricity has become much more reliable and cost effective. 168 million tons of carbon dioxide averted.
Wow.
And that's just one country. And this is not one organization, it's an alliance, it's a collective effort. But it gives you confidence that you're on a good path. Our ultimate goal, as I said, is 1 billion people and 4 gigatons of carbon dioxide averted. And so yeah, quite some way to go, but promising.
That's incredible. And I wanted to start with this because, before we talk about your journey with Microsoft and all the other things that you've accomplished, very few people can ever say that, they've been able to touch millions of lives. But you were at a very interesting juncture when you decided to leave Microsoft as its chair and leave the corporate world behind at the peak of your corporate career. So obviously you've channeled that beautifully into conscious capitalism and social entrepreneurship and all the initiatives that you've led after that. But what was that moment then? Why did you decide to leave? What was that pivotal moment for you?
Thank you. It wasn't a pivotal moment. When I joined Microsoft, which was in early 2004, January 2004, I'd set out some goals for the company, which is we need to achieve at least $1 billion in revenues. We need to be the largest geography for Microsoft. We should be the most respected company in India. We didn't get there. We got to most respected MNC in India. And by 2010, those things had happened. And so I'm a builder. And so I wasn't enjoying the next phase of maturity as much. And as Steve Jobs famously said in his commencement speech, if for too many days you wake up in the morning and you say, oh, I'm not enjoying what I do, it's time to do something different. So that was one significant factor. I would say that also, I was turning 46 and I said, look, there's no guarantee that you're going to live to be 80 and then have enough time to do all those other things. So this is as good a time to go out there and try my hand at new things. Why postpone living? And so that's why I set out without another job. I was only clear about one thing, Shrishti. I'm never going to be an employee again. That part of my life is done. Now I'm going to be an adventurer, an explorer. And that's why the next 15 years have been good. For a long time, people thought I was fired by Microsoft. Why else would you, such a decent job and, good compensation, all the good stuff. Fortunately, my book was endorsed by Bill Gates. And so people realize, okay, that probably was not the case.
Of course, because, even when I was moving on from Meta, it was the cushiest job in the world. And, my parents, including my friends, everyone was like, how can you leave Meta? This is the cushiest job that anyone can ever have. And you're not being grateful, I was told very often. And, in hindsight, a lot of my friends joke also that, staying at Meta would probably, in hindsight, have been the most impressive financial decision, but in life you can't quantify everything just by money and wealth. Yeah. And, that was a very core moving piece because even I saw myself as a builder. I didn't see myself being a cogwheel in, the bigger landscape. So I decided to move on. But as a chair...
I bet you don't regret it.
I don't regret it at all. But I'm sure people have asked you the same question.
Yeah, no regrets.
No regrets.
No, I was very happy to have spent 8 good years there. I'm very happy to have moved on at the right time.
Amazing. And I don't think a lot of people or anyone in the world can claim that they have a handwritten note from Bill Gates claiming that he was wrong. Give us the backstory and give us the context.
I'm not sure where you picked this up, but it's a fun story because this was probably around 2006 or 7. And Bill and Melinda were making one of their visits to India, both as the foundation and Microsoft. And Bill had landed in Delhi in the morning quite early. And by the time we boarded his plane to go to Chennai, He was already quite exhausted. I was even more exhausted. And there we were in his plane. Bill was sitting here, Melinda was sitting there, I was sitting here, and waiting for ATC clearance. It was 11:30 at night already. And so Bill was in not a good mood. And we got into some argument. And the argument in hindsight was really silly. But Bill doesn't like losing an argument.
I'm sure.
And this time I said, so what if he's Bill Gates? And I also didn't let go because I was also tired. And so we kept at it. At some point he said, well, I guess you're right. And he became quiet. And then Melinda leaned across and gave him a $1 bill and said, Bill, what do you do? So he pulled out his pen and wrote, I was wrong, Bill Gates, and gave it to me. And of course, framed that and kept it because, yeah, it turns out actually one of the great things about both Bill and Microsoft is that you got respect when you were willing to argue for something. Whether you were eventually right or wrong mattered less, but the courage and the conviction behind your ideas was really something that got you respect or lost you respect. And so that was a rite of passage. So, yeah, it's fun.
That's a fun backstory.
Yeah, and it's my retirement plan, my emergency fund.
The $1 note will serve you.
See, put
But, I also wanted to talk about, given that you've seen the inside of the Microsoft ecosystem, we want to go deeper into the AI space and talk about that a lot more. But any thoughts on what Open's AI partnership with Microsoft can look like? Especially because, OpenAI just launched their India office.
Yeah.
And they're building a team here now. And they launched a product also, catering just
The
to the
300 rupees per month subscription. Yeah.
So, what do you think of this partnership?
I have no particular knowledge other than what's already in the public domain. But clearly, Satya saw the opportunity with the OpenAI. I saw the opportunity to disrupt Google search and jumped on it. And that's been great for OpenAI and it's been great for Microsoft. Now I think the relationship appears to be maturing where, today on Azure, they offer multiple LLMs.
Yes.
And OpenAI is also working with partners beyond Microsoft, including Oracle.
Yeah.
And so I think we're drifting into the typical tech world of co-opetition, where they will cooperate on some things and compete on other things. And that's just the way that world works. I hope it's nothing more dramatic than that.
Tell us a little bit more about it because the audience, I'm sure, doesn't understand the context that you would have as an insider who's seen these ecosystems evolve.
What aspect would you like?
Like, when because you were early in the digital and cloud transformation days also. Obviously, there is big disruption that happens anytime new technology becomes all pervasive. And it has, right? Like, we are hooked to ChatGPT. People are developing AI psychosis and like there's so many things which are happening, which we'll talk about. But, there are things which the audience would like to probably understand how big organizations take these decisions and make these calls.
I think for me, what is the most interesting is how very, very few companies, Microsoft amongst them, is able to navigate disruption after disruption over 50 years. Whereas, otherwise many companies have, look at IBM. They were strong for a long time and then, they lost the plot and now their market cap is somewhere like 50 billion compared to, so it's, and so it comes down to what is the culture that you create that is able to adapt to disruption after disruption. And so AI is one of the more challenging things that's playing out right now. And so the ability of the company, again, to navigate itself to being in the front of the pack, to me, that's the most interesting thing.
As someone who's been on multiple boards and seen organizations up front, Bank of Baroda, Infosys, Hitachi, you've pretty much seen different ecosystems and companies thrive and also go in different directions. So where would you say what makes the companies really stand the test of time? Because in across the world, there are very few companies that actually make it to 100 years, right?
Yeah, very, very few. Hitachi just crossed 100 years. We're now about 115 years.
Yeah.
And again, that's kind of impressive. Bank of Baroda also about the same time. Infi is getting close to 50. So, yeah, these are impressive achievements. But a lot has to do with the culture and core value, the software of the place. Because what you need is to build a culture that embraces change. And so it's able to be open to new ideas rather than just, get internally focused and struggle to adapt.
Yeah.
The culture has to be willing to take risk. There is no such thing as a risk-free life, as you know. There are risks if you take a decision, and there are risks if you stay put and don't take a decision. And these cultures are often able to, have a bias towards risks of commission rather than risks of omission.
Yeah.
And Jeff Bezos says something really beautiful. He says, look, when the world is changing so fast, you have to build the company, in his case, Amazon, on what doesn't change. So what he said will not change is the customer. The customer is always going to want a better shopping experience, less friction, something, more assortment, lower costs.
Yeah.
And so we just drive relentlessly on that proposition because that won't change. So, but it's nice in theory. It's actually so hard in practice to build such a culture.
Exactly, because just in terms of what's happening with AI, right? Like I personally am finding it hard to keep up with the pace of the rapid innovations that are happening. Literally every week, something new is coming out in the market, and you're stunned by the velocity of how things are shaping. And this also ties into how much job insecurity people have started developing. There's all this talk about AI will come and take away our jobs, and there'll be huge job loss. And I think the number of people impacted, Goldman Sachs put out a report, it seems to be around 300 million who will get impacted. But there are these facts that we are looking at, and we're also looking at rapid change.
Yeah.
So how would you suggest the youth today prepare themselves?
Well, first of all, I think people need to realize that AI is one of the most powerful innovations to come along. It's called the fourth industrial revolution, and it's comparable in its magnitude to the steam engine that came before it, or electricity, which was the second industrial revolution. And how it'll actually play out, no one knows, because it depends on us, what we do, what choices we make as society, as governments, as CEOs, and so on and so forth. But any powerful technology is dual use, i.e., you can use it to do good or do bad.
So, Ravi, there's so much insecurity about people thinking about job losses, and people think that AI will come and steal my job. So, how does the youth prepare and insulate themselves from this pace of rapid change?
Look, it's good, first of all, to be very concerned about what AI will do. Right now, what I find is people think about AI sort of like climate change. Kuch hoga, but it's happening there, it's happening to someone else. Maybe sometime it'll affect me. And then boom, it affects you. So AI is the same way. It is a tsunami that's coming our way. It's going to affect all, knowledge workers, white collar workers. If you're delivering Swiggy parcels, maybe it's less, impactful. But for most of us who do some sort of information work, it's the biggest deal out there. And right now, it's not clear whether it's going to be a force for good or whether it's actually going to destroy a lot of jobs and compress wages. Because how AI is deployed, whether it is used to replace people largely or whether it is used to augment people, is a choice that companies make and CEOs make. And right now, the early evidence is most of them are talking the talk, but what they're really doing is using AI to replace people. If you see the layoff announcements that are already quietly happening, so many thousand in Microsoft, so many thousand in Oracle, so many thousand in TCS, etc. They're the early signals that this is going to be a big, big, big challenge for employment. And it's not just jobs, it'll also compress wages. Because what's going to happen is one smart person, let's say like you, using AI will be able to do the job of many people. And so that the supply demand thing will get, skewed. And so wages will go down. It's a particularly big challenge for new graduates. And you're seeing this already, not just in India, but the United States, where even the new graduates from Brown, Harvard University, from Stanford, etc., computer science, MBAs, are struggling to find jobs. Why that's happening is very likely because the entry-level jobs are the easiest to automate.
Yeah.
Okay. So for young people, since you asked that question, I think it's looking particularly challenging. So I think this is only going to accelerate as more and more companies learn how to deploy AI at scale. What is also happening at this moment is there's AI adoption in large companies is going through what's called the trough of disillusionment, which is the pilots are working well, but they're not able to scale it in the organization for a variety of reasons. As they learn to fix that, the pace of job losses is very likely to quicken. Just about 2 weeks ago, there was a Microsoft research report that came out that said, look, here are the 20 jobs that are most at risk, and here are the 20 jobs that are least at risk. You saw that? The least ones are things like nurses or plumber, electrician.
Anything which people do with
manual work. And the things that are likely to be highly affected are anything to do with writing, research, content creation, lawyer, mathematician, software programmers. And that's a big deal for India. We moved 100 million people into the middle class basically by doing these kinds of jobs, software development and research, back office research, and so on. So first of all, I'd say take this really seriously. And then what do you do? Because that's the really interesting question, not just, oh my God, there's something bad happening. What can I do to prepare? Because equally, AI is going to throw up unbelievable opportunities. So if you have the mindset and the skills, this could be an amazing, amazing time to be alive and young. So that's why I'm writing this book, actually. So I said, look, let me actually put things in a very practical perspective for everybody, saying, when will AI steal my job, and how do I learn to prepare for that and flourish? There are probably 4 or 5 things that are really important. The first is you have to develop a very different mindset. So this idea of naukri or jobs and all has to go. Okay, because there aren't going to be many jobs. Okay, the stable jobs leading to stable careers of the sort I had, that's over. That's 20th century. We are now in a different century. So what you have to do is have the mindset of that I can build something around my skills. I can be self-employed. I can actually be an entrepreneur and actually start something that I can employ 3-4 more people. So you need to have this freelancer, self-employed, gig worker, consultant kind of mindset. That's easy to say. It's a hard shift.
Yeah, it's a rude shock to Indian parents.
Indian parents are going to be in shock, but I hope Indian youth are able to.
I think the youth will be fine. The parents need to hear this.
Yeah. So that's one. What this says is, look, everybody needs an entrepreneurial mindset. Entrepreneurship used to be a career choice, which is, should I start a business or should I look for a job? That was the career choice. Today, everybody has to be entrepreneurial. It's a life skill, just like literacy, numeracy, etc. are life skills. Why? Because in this century, there won't be many jobs, but there'll be lots of opportunities to go fix some problem and make a business out of it. Okay. So if you're able to see an opportunity, grab it, do something about it, then you will survive and thrive. So learning how to become more entrepreneurial is critical. Fortunately, it's something that you can learn. Everybody can learn. So in my not-for-profit world, in game, my co-founder, Mekin, who runs Udyam Learning Foundation, is already running the largest entrepreneurship curriculum in 10,000 government schools in 10 states. And already millions of young people have graduated. And so we know this is learnable. We know the poorest of the poor can pick it up. So there's no great problem here. It just requires you to get on with learning it. So that's another mindset. A third mindset is this. Let me come to this. The third big thing is learning to be more human. So there's a Nobel Prize winning physicist called Arno Penzias. And he says, look, if you don't want to be replaced by a machine, stop acting like one. Okay. And what he's saying is, look, our education system teaches us things that are obsolete and which today AI can do much better, which is find information and retrieve it or solve structured problems. These are all things machines are way better at than humans. So we'll never be able to move faster than the rate at which AI is progressing because it learns non-linearly. So what we have to do is learn to become more and more and more human. What does being more human imply? Well, it's things that AI is not yet very good at and probably won't be good at for a long time. Things like curiosity, deciding to follow some path based on your interests. And it's, again, completely non-predictable. Judgment. So people say, now, for instance, ChatGPT, if I put a question in, can generate an idea for a marketing campaign, or it can even generate 5 different types of campaigns. So if I'm a marketing consultant, what am I going to do? Well, that stuff can be automated, but somebody still has to use judgment and know the context and then decide which of these campaigns is actually promising. Okay, and which one sounds okay, but is actually probably a dumb idea. Okay, somebody has to work with the client and handhold them and drive the results. So it's not just about coming up with a campaign idea. Somebody has to execute it, deliver results. So this is all the human part. It requires empathy. It requires judgment. It requires understanding of context. And so you need to develop these things. There'll still be people. Okay, we're not going anywhere. And so your ability to connect with people, the ability to lead people and teams to accomplish something is going to become more and more valuable. So leadership is the ultimate human quality. Okay, it's going to be a very long time before AI is able to lead teams of people. Okay, so for the longest time, we are going to be leading teams of peoples plus AI agents. So learning leadership, which is again a learned skill, is very important. So this is a third set of things that I would say young people should pick up. And of course, you should start using tools that are relevant to your job, not just ChatGPT. That's kind of the most basic. That's the equivalent of old Google search. But learning to use whatever tools, if you're a content creator, all this Canva and the new Adobe tool set and so on and so forth. And it's moving rapidly. So every week people are inventing new tools. So you have to stay abreast and be out there, because if you're not learning fast enough, then somebody else is going to be replacing you more than likely. So these are some of the things that you do, but I don't think it's as bleak if you wake up and you adapt and you learn to see opportunities all around.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic advice for the youth, because, also, there are two scenarios that are being painted. One is a doomsday scenario or a complete utopia and AGI kind of scenario, right?
Where it's very dystopian.
Yes. So we don't really know where we'll end up. But, as someone, say, in the start of their careers in their 20s or 30s, if you were starting your career today, how would you go along or do things differently? Because, when we talk about entrepreneurship and becoming a leader, these things you kind of have to learn over a period of time, expose yourself to different experiences, and, gather these insights along the way. So how would you do it?
So what I would do if I were rewinding my life is probably do the same things but adapt it to today's context. So what did I do? I saw that coming out of IIT in 1985, that look, India doesn't have all that much opportunity for somebody who's really ambitious and driven. So like much of my class, I went abroad. Those days going abroad was much different than today. Today, kids are rich, parents have money to pay for scholarships and so on and so forth. My dad was a government servant, and he said, look, you can go anywhere you want as long as you pay for it. So I had to get a scholarship. There was no money for airfare. So I applied to different places, ended up with Tata Trust paying my airfare, which I had to pay back. Then those days, foreign currency was very hard to get. So I actually ended up boarding the plane with $20. Okay. And unfortunately for me, I spent $9 in Frankfurt. I landed in New York with $11, missed the flight, and there was no money to buy the bus ticket. So I found another Indian looking guy looking lost and found out he was going to the same university and he had $100. So we ended up rooming together. But the point is, it was an adventure. It was taking risk. Okay. So I would encourage young person today, if I were giving advice to my kid or younger self, I'd say, follow your curiosity, be willing to go down, uncharted paths, not just the known one. And you need to be constantly adapting and learning. You need to be more entrepreneurial. Instead of going to the US today, I might go to China today. If I were 22 years old graduating, I don't think I'd go to the US. It's not the most dynamic country in the world today. It's China. So do you have the guts to go there, learn Chinese, go through Tsinghua University, get a job there for 10 years in one of these extraordinarily dynamic places? So I would make similar decisions, but shift it for context.
That's very interesting that you say that, because obviously American dream has been around for so long, right? And I guess there's a set of India that still thinks that getting into Harvard, Stanford is the dream. But the world order is changing, right? And there is that sense in the air. We are seeing rapid innovations happen in China, and they've progressed so much. If you just compare, the progress that's happened. So why do you think, why China and why not somewhere else across?
Yeah, because the sense that I get is that the 20th century was the American century, and the 21st century is the Chinese century. And it's hard to make these predictions with any confidence, but it does seem that America is generally, not as dynamic, not as welcoming of foreigners as it was in my time. China is very much on the ascendant still. They're no longer just doing copycat things. Their firms are genuinely innovating in every field that matters to the 21st century. Chinese firms are either at the top or in the back at the top. So whether it's DeepSeek and AI, whether it is in electric vehicles where it's all Chinese, and renewable energy, or even nuclear power. Right now, there's probably 2 reactors under construction in the US. There are 33 in China. Okay. So in every field, that country is on the ascendant. And yes, of course, we have a difficult relationship with them being neighbors. But if I were a young person, I wouldn't let these things deter me. I would probably go out there and try and figure out what's going on in this extraordinary country.
Absolutely. And that's very interesting advice. And also when you think about the AI value chain, right, there are LLMs being built. There's a lot of investments which are going into infra. Then there's also this application layer and consumer applications that will come out of it. And, when every if this kind of a big boom happens, usually people say that picks and shovels make the most amount of money or the value is captured in those. Where do you see the value actually emerging out of? With so many billions of dollars are being deployed, one sense is also that we may be really early in the cycle still, right? Or where do you think we are in the cycle and where do you think the value will ultimately be captured?
I don't know. The value chain is complex, as you said, from applications to these LLMs to the chips that are running it, like NVIDIA and others, to the people providing equipment for making chips.
And the power side.
And the power side. I mean, it's a complex value chain, and there will be, but the thing is also dynamic. Where money is made will shift. The part that I think is almost certain to be important and make money is applications. Okay, we see this in the old tech world, the tech stack. Some people have created very dominant positions like Intel or Microsoft in the old days, or Google and around their search. But there were a lot of people who built lots of useful apps and made lots of money.
Yeah.
Okay. This layer where you create platform dominance is much harder game. So I think particularly for India, building incredibly useful practical applications of AI, leveraging this rapidly commoditizing compute layer is the game, and we should lead the world in this at least. Okay, and the fortunate thing about us is we've got lots of problems, which every other part of the world also shares, and we've got really smart minds who are capable of solving these problems at scale using AI. So, for instance, in education, one of my young friends is a HBS grad called Aziz. He runs a educational startup called Rocket Learning. And he's not waiting around for all this stuff. He's already created a AI-enabled agent called Pappu the elephant. Okay, so kids learn by talking to the AI elephant tutor. Okay, same thing is true of Khan Academy. They're also using AI in a big way to transform the learning experience. Even 15 years ago, when I was in Microsoft Research, there was something called the robotic nurse. This is well before this transformer technology and all had come along. And the robotic nurse was a PC that you could have a conversation with, speech, and you could describe your symptoms and she would diagnose it and tell you what to do. Today, with ChatGPT, you can do so much more. For instance, my dog in December became very ill. And we took the dog to the vet and said, "Oh, too bad, it's got cancer. The tumor has spread and the whole intestine is blocked, which is why it's not able to eat." So I said, "What do you do?" He said, "Sir, at this age, it's hard. Let's just keep him comfortable." But, I felt it's my dog.
How old is the dog?
12. So what I did is uploaded the scans into ChatGPT and it said, "Look, I think this looks operable." Okay, so I went and got a CT scan, and it looked definitely operable. So they operated, and the guy is running around fine now. But again, I think that you can do all these things today. Our own little organization, Game, which is trying to, advance lots and lots of small entrepreneurs. We've already trained 10,000 women entrepreneurs on AI. And we've got a grant to do 100,000, including from your old company, Meta. And we're building an AI Sakhi, an AI assistant for these small women-owned businesses, for these women entrepreneurs. It's about to come out in the next few months. So you can build all these kinds of amazingly useful applications, and we should lead the world on that.
Yeah, absolutely. Because India does offer scale, right?
Yeah.
And while the brightest minds were leaving our country before, like decades ago, but I think now people want to stay and build for the India opportunity.
Yeah, India has scale in many ways in terms of demand, but also data that matters, and in terms of talent to build these things. So I think we've got it all. We should just put our heads down and take advantage of this moment.
So, now coming to thinking about, how companies will get disrupted, because a lot of these innovations are also happening within these big tech companies, right? And a lot of people feel that they will be the ultimate beneficiaries of the whole AI wave because they ultimately have the scale, they have the data. Versus, where India is currently, where, we haven't had a market we haven't had a company which is led by market cap and been able to break into the global rankings in that sense. So where do you think this power shift will happen from a company perspective?
So you don't only about tech companies, not user companies.
It could be either. It's just, because big tech companies did make 40% of US's market cap.
Yeah.
So if they do change or get disrupted, it'll be a big disruption of that economy as well, right?
Yeah. No, this whole concentration of power that's happening in big tech, particularly US big tech, is an enormously worrying thing. Okay. I think we should worry about it societally, and we should also be very concerned about it geopolitically, because we have seen that the behavior of the United States and US firms is shifting. And so today, the firms will follow the directives from the US government, and those follow a very different logic. And so if we become dependent on these platforms, on these firms, you could find yourself in the position that China is, where access is threatened.
Yeah.
And we saw that in the case of this Russian refiner in Ahmedabad. No, not Jamnagar, actually.
Jamnagar.
It was Jamnagar, where the Microsoft 365 was shut off and they were stranded. These are all warning signals that says, look, we better, if we're a large economy, see, it's very small if you're Singapore. It's hard. But for the large economy, we should develop our own indigenous technological strength. And we're a long ways from that. It's not easy to fix. You can wistfully wish that, the next NVIDIA, the next OpenAI should come from India. But it's not easy. And that's because we don't have the ecosystem that is capable of producing such firms. Now, people lament, why does Arvind Srinivas have to leave India to build Perplexity? Well, it's very simple. The ecosystem for building Perplexity exists only in Silicon Valley and in China. Okay, it doesn't even exist in Europe. So, and it's extremely hard to build these ecosystems, and India is just now beginning to realize that we better get going with this. But it's not easy.
Yeah, because this is a big risk that I'm seeing. Most of the AI builders and amazing founders are actually choosing to go and build in Silicon Valley rather than build in India.
Because it's hard. The ecosystem does not exist. The ecosystem in India now exists for IT services. If you're going to build an IT services firm, India is the place. Bangalore, Kolkata are the places where you need to build it, not anywhere else. If you're going to build a consumer internet company, India, thanks to this early success of Flipkart, has the ecosystem with the venture capital, the angels, the serial entrepreneurs, the Sanjeev Bikhchandanis, etc. So, but when it comes to building real AI companies, we don't yet have that. And people are saying, we should work on policy, we should work on skilling, all that is fine. But I think we should work on producing one winner. Okay, the simplest thing to do is actually, if you can create one iconic company that breaks out, that'll change the whole game. How did IT services happen? Because Infosys, Wipro, became shooting stars and everybody emulated their success. With consumer internet, it was Flipkart. Okay, so we need one or two companies that are somehow, and don't ask me how, able to break out and become enormous successes. And then hundreds of people will try and emulate their success, and the ecosystem will fall in place. They'll figure out with the government what policies we need, and so on and so forth. But that I would focus on trying to get at least one world-class company out there.
Any advice to Indian founders who might want or aspire to build such company?
Well, There's always the first person to scale Everest. Okay. And no matter how impossible that seems, you should go and try and build a world-class company. Piyush Goyal got a lot of sort of brickbats for saying what he did a couple of months ago.
Yeah.
Saying, look, we build ice cream companies and, quick delivery companies, but can we actually build technology businesses of the future? And it was taken perhaps in a wrong spirit, but there was more than a kernel of truth to that. So I would encourage Indian founders to build companies that really matter, and also world-class companies, not just quick valuations and whatnots.
Yeah.
So if you look at, I'm obviously biased because I was associated for a number of years, 7 years with Infosys. But where is the Infosys of the last decade? Okay, which is a game changer, not just a successful company with a good valuation. Aspire to build world-class companies. That's what the Chinese do.
Any sectors that you would be more bullish on, where they have the hope of producing such a company?
Well, look, India is still a young economy. We're a large country, 1.4 billion people, with really low income levels. Our per capita GDP is $2,200, but even that is concealing the fact that our median income is $500. So, there's huge opportunities everywhere in manufacturing and services and tech and so on and so forth. The best chances are where the government is not involved. Okay. So wherever the government is involved, either as a customer or as a, regulator or whatnot, you can't win. Okay. That game is rigged. So you should go into these spaces. Largely, it's, B2B, B2C companies, where I think there is a more of a level playing field where you can build a good business.
The perception about the government being a customer has changed now, though.
No, it's terrible. It's just terrible to have government as your customer. First of all, the contracts require practices which are difficult for most good companies. Number two, you don't get paid. And it remains it's sad because government is such a large buyer. So through good procurement policies, they can actually change the game. For instance, the US has always had this program a government procurement program that says they will give preference to minority-owned businesses. So women-owned businesses or people from disadvantaged communities, African American, Asian, and that's huge. Okay, so if we can get procurement preference for women-owned businesses in India, that would be a game changer. But yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. We need to do so much better as a country, for sure. Wait, you've also been inside boardrooms where I'm sure these discussions are on every leader's mind, right?
Which discussion?
The topic around AI and also geopolitical tension and how to, people say winning the AI race, but let's reframe it and say, just navigating the uncertainty that comes with it, be it the AI disruption or geopolitical tension. So how would you advise board members to think about this transition or this phase of uncertainty? What have you been saying in boardroom?
I've not been saying much in boardrooms except the two boardrooms where I'm in the room. But by and large, I would say, and Shrishti, if I'm perfectly frank, a very large number of boardrooms in India as well as overseas are still extremely traditional and largely are rubber stamp boards and see their primary role as compliance driven. Okay. So, are the audits clean? Is the information we put out accurate or not? Is the management doing what they're supposed to, not doing what they're not supposed to? Basic compliance orientation. That's not enough today. There's this distinction between wartime generals and peacetime generals. And you can immediately understand the kind of general you want commanding the army during a war is totally different than the kind of person you want commanding the army at peacetime. And the same metaphor is now applying to CEOs. You have wartime CEOs and peacetime CEOs. When things are just stable and whatnot, it requires a certain type. So you can get away with some type of leadership. In times like these, where there's disruption, risk, challenge, opportunity, all mixed together, the kind of leader you need has to be much more entrepreneurial, okay, and driven, and be willing to take risks and have a bias for action, and also builds a team that is capable of moving quickly and so on. Same is true of boards. So you need boards today that are not just seeing their primary role as compliance, but working as partners with the CEO and the management team to navigate all these challenges and opportunities. It's high-speed snakes and ladders. Okay. And so you want to make sure that you jump on the ladders and don't jump on a snake, and so you have to do this. How do you build a board like that? That's the question. Even if you want to. By the way, most companies don't want to. Okay, the promoter-driven companies, this is not what they want. They want boards which will behave in a predictable manner.
Or extended family members.
Yeah, but whoever they are, it should be predictable. And I don't want too much surprise from the board or challenge. So you need to build boards which have these kinds of skills. So if AI is going to be so important, tech is going to be so important, you need board members who are natively technologists. Okay, not just that they use ChatGPT, so they know this stuff. Geopolitical. If your business is global, okay, and you have geopolitical risk, then you need people from around the world, and that too, not just a CEO from that country, somebody who has access to the decision makers in that country. Okay, so that's a very different profile. So you need to think very differently about the composition of your board. You can't have just all retired CEOs or retired people. Okay, now you need people who are in the prime of whatever it is they're doing, because things are changing fast. If you're retired 5 years, your knowledge is already quite obsolete. Okay, whereas the historical practice is get eminent people who have, no longer in full-time roles. That doesn't work, I think. So composition is one thing, but more important is culture. The chair has to create a culture which is welcoming of honest conversations, critical thinking, challenge, and it's not seen as a problem, but is welcome. Okay, so it's like a high-pressure vessel. You have to contain it, but you need to have these kinds of intense discussions. Warren Murthy used to call it the ability to disagree without becoming disagreeable. Okay, that's the spirit that has to be there, or that Bill Gates question, where challenging and holding on to your convictions is actually an appreciated quality. So that's the culture you have to create. And then the CEO has to also see the board as very different. Today, the CEO typically sees the board as something to be managed. It's a tax you pay for all the rest of the fun that you have as the CEO. And they have to actually say, look, I want to have a very different board conversation, which is around, look, here are the challenges I'm facing. Here are the opportunities we have. I need help. Okay, what do you think of this? Who can open doors? Who can help me? This is not how the typical CEO board conversation is. Okay? So I think it requires a big shift. And one of the reasons today, that's why I'm not on most boards, because I've decided it's a waste of time. And the Hitachi board, which is the one large listed company I'm on the board of, surprisingly, is just all these things. So it's a technology company, but of our 12 members, 4 of the independents are technologists. Okay, and some of the internal people as well. Okay, we've got active CEOs from every geography in which the company operates. Our meetings are so intense, open, critical, that it's unbelievable. Okay, which is why if you see the market cap of that company, it's tripled, quadrupled in just 5 years. Because I think it has the courage to go down this path.
Right. Yeah, agree to disagree inside boardrooms is so important for any company's growth. What are other examples that come to mind when you think about wartime leaders? Because you work with such incredible leaders across the globe. Are there any other examples that come to mind?
Typically, founders are wartime leaders. Okay, because the entrepreneurial act of building a business, growing it, is very akin to wartime leadership. So if you look at all good founders, okay, they will be wartime leaders. So certainly the people I had the great fortune of spending some time with, whether it's Bill Gates or Narayana Murthy or whatever on those boards, are wartime leaders. But you look at today's generation as well, Dipinder Goyal or whatnot. I think they're also superb wartime leaders.
In fact, there was some interesting podcast that I was listening to where they referred to these new leaders that we have today as, the kings of the past would have done exactly the same things, like in terms of geographical expansion and going to war and leading from the front and having the courage. So all the leaders and even entrepreneurs, the things and traits that are required to actually lead companies are actually exactly what the kings needed to have.
Yeah. So leadership and entrepreneurship are these intersecting circles. They overlap to such a great extent, which is why when it comes to what skills does a young person need in the 21st century, I emphasize these two.
Right.
Okay. Not that everybody is going to build some company or not. These are the basic skills that we all need at some threshold level to navigate this crazy 21st century.
And I also want to go deeper into the conversation around dissent, right? In where you need to have the courage to be able to stand up within your company or in front of your board and have that conviction to be able to say that this is my point of view, and I may not agree with majority of what the point of view is on the board at that time. So how does one inculcate that? Is this a learnable skill as well in your experience?
It's a learnable skill. But how do you create it is very simple. The leader has to tolerate dissent, if not actively encourage constructive dissent. There's also destructive dissent where people. I'm talking about constructive debate and disagreement. If the leader doesn't encourage this, squash it, then people are going to learn the game pretty quickly, this is not a desired quality. And that's why such leaders are rare. Okay. The more interesting question is, what do you do as an individual? And, I seek such environments, and right from an early age, if people expected compliance, I ran away from there. Okay. And I think that's what I would advise young people to do today, which is seek environments which are vibrant, buzzing, where your ideas are welcome. And it's not who is right, but which idea is right. Okay. And that's what I would do. I would navigate towards and swim towards these environments. Typically, they're in earlier stage companies, unfortunately.
Because I asked this question because, you spoke about culture, of course. And then, I also recall reading about an incident that happened at the very early start of your career at Cummins, where you were responsible for union workers, right?
Yeah.
And aligning them to company's objectives and getting them all organized.
Yeah.
And I think the union worker actually wrote your recommendation.
I don't know how you know these arcane things. But yeah, my first moment of leadership in a professional context was in a very difficult factory environment in the U.S. Midwest in 1988-89. And I was very young. I was surrounded by workers who, had not gone to college, big, white, older. And I was this weirdo. And I was trying to lead them. And there was one particular moment which, was a defining moment in my leadership and professional career, where I had shut down the factory, that small part of the factory, to send all the workers to another place to go learn. So we'd hired a bus, put everybody on it, and they went. Unfortunately, that day there was a quality problem with our part. And so the engine assembly line shut down because our part was defective. There was a hole that was missing. So what do? So I decided I'm going to go load up the parts and drill these holes myself because I had not gone on that trip. Now, those days, there was a rule put by the union that engineers cannot touch the machine or operate the machine without the worker being there. This was done to protect jobs. Those days, they were worried about automation. Today, they're worried about AI. Same thing. But I said, ignore it. Look, the line is shut down. You can't wait for the guys to come back tomorrow. So I did it. The union filed a grievance against me and asked management that this young engineer should be dismissed because it was a big threat to them. If every engineer starts doing this, then where does it stop? My guys came back and they refused to back the union's grievance request. They said he sent us for training, for learning. This is the first time in 25 years that anybody has ever sent us out to go learn something. So they refused to back the union. They backed me. And that's when I realized leadership is not a position or a title. It's not. You don't wait for somebody to ask you to do things. You just decide what needs to be done in that moment, and you do it. And if you show good judgment, you become a leader. So that's why in my book on what the heck do I do with my life, I say in the 21st century, leadership is something that each of us needs to demonstrate because it's a behavior, it's a mindset, it's an act, not title and position. So don't wait to be instructed. Don't wait to get the approval to do something. Ask for forgiveness if it doesn't work out. That's a central quality of leadership.
Amazing. I wanted to bring this story out to the audience. I know I went really back in the...
Yeah, that was crazy. This was a very, very old thing. This happened like 30 years ago.
Incredible story when I read about it.
Yeah, and they wrote my application to Harvard Business School.
Yes.
And I think one of the reasons my application was so different from anybody else, and nobody else had a union person writing it. They all got some CEO, this, that, whatever.
One way to differentiate yourself for sure. And then, what I found also very interesting is your deep interest and passion for social entrepreneurship. Tell us about the seeding and how that came about.
Well, but as I said, I was in Microsoft at a very interesting time where Bill was also changing, Bill Gates. He had started his foundation, and by 2005-06, he was spending more time on the foundation, less time on Microsoft. And I was always interested in what he was doing because on his India trips, half his time would be on the social side and half of it was on the business side. And during that time, we had to, the big challenge Microsoft faced in my time in India was not growth opportunities. That was there in spades because the IT boom was going on. The problem was people didn't trust us. Okay, we had the same reputation that's Meta and Facebook has today. Okay, so we had to earn trust and goodwill. And we tried different things, but one of the things we decided is, can we train millions of young kids from the poorest government schools how to use computers? Okay, so Windows, Office, Internet Explorer, I'm talking about a different era now.
Yeah.
And so we came up with this program called Shiksha, which worked with state governments. And eventually it went on to help 40 million kids learn these skills. Okay, over a long time, over 10, 15 years. So that was my first experience about thinking about impact at scale and seeing, the lives of these young people transformed. And so as I was thinking about what should I do after Microsoft 2010, I said, look here, building another business, that's fine. We've done it a few times. Can I actually tackle some of the largest issues of our time? And can I be part of helping solve those? And so I began a set of experiments in 2011. So first I started with others, social venture partners, which is, can you get successful people like Shrishti? I don't know if you're a member of our Delhi chapter or not, but if not, I'm going to recruit you. But how can you get successful people involved in philanthropy? And because many people reach a point in their life where they want to give back, but they don't know how to start. So we say, don't worry about it. Just join others on the same journey and we'll help you learn. And today, it's the largest philanthropic network in the country with about 750, 800 donors across 8 cities. That led to my starting the next one, which was GAME. GAME stands for the Global Alliance for Mass Entrepreneur. And we want millions of ordinary people I just came back yesterday night from Nagaland. So in places like Dimapur and Kohima, how can you encourage small businesses, small entrepreneurs to create a handful of jobs? Because that's the transformation we need in India. India's success is not going to come from 10 firms like Reliance becoming bigger. That's okay. But we need this bottom-up revolution. So I started that, and we're now in our 7th year and getting close to tasting success. Then that led, one of the biggest challenges all these entrepreneurs face is lack of access to electricity. So try running a business where the power fails 6 times a day, and you can, it's hard. If you buy a diesel generator set, the cost is very high. It's also polluting. Okay. So that's how we got started with the Global Energy Alliance. So one thing led to another, and here we are. But I find these problems to be the most intellectually challenging. I like solving puzzles. So these are the toughest puzzles in the world. They're a test of leadership because nobody has to listen to you. What locus standi do you have? You have to lead by influence, not by any power. And when you can actually get something working, it's very satisfying.
I'm very interested in understanding how you track outcomes and success of these programs, because traditionally the perception that most people have had is that you can't track successful outcomes that emerge from this, or there's no real way to measure impact that you have on the ground, right? But we need to solve for these issues because the polarity...
Are you really interested in this?
I am. Seriously, I'm very interested.
Whether it comes on the video or not.
Yeah.
So typically what you can track outcomes fairly well is around programmatic interventions. Okay. It's much harder to track outcomes around when you're trying to change the system. So on program, for instance, we run a program with Amazon Saheli, for small women-owned businesses. So already we have 100,000 women-owned businesses or producers who are working in about 40 aggregator groups or clusters or collectives. And we've helped them on board onto Amazon and start transacting things like food items or handicrafts typically. So, and some of them are doing quite well. There you can track outcomes extremely clearly. Yeah. How much did her income grow as a result of this? So what we are trying to say is, can we raise the income on average by 25% in a year? Okay. So you look at numbers, it tells a story. The harder part is, how can you change the whole system? And that is quite difficult. So what we have finally stumbled onto is, can we go to a place? Our first place that we're working is Nagpur. The second place is Vizag. Third one is Dimapur, Nagaland. And can we mobilize some of the most successful people in this place, the most powerful people in this place, to care about entrepreneurship? These are existing business owners, promoters. It could be a big one like Haldiram. It could be a small entrepreneur. Can we get the district magistrate involved? Can we get the lead banker in that place involved? Can we get the colleges involved? And can we create a sort of a Rotary club for entrepreneurship in that place? Then we provide the secretariat inside. And then we form task forces. One task force works on ease of doing business. Can we make a dramatic simplification working with the government? Another one works on, for instance, accelerating the growth of existing businesses. So we have a accelerator program which is enormously successful. So can we get existing businesses growing fast and communicate that so people say, wow, this is possible. Okay. Third one is, what is this place capable of growing? And can we help make that much bigger? So I just came back, as I said, from 2.5 days in Nagaland. So we are focused on coffee. We're focused on king chili and wild honey. Okay.
Yeah.
these are things they produce which are exceptionally high quality, and they could do so much better. So around these value chains, we want to get entrepreneurship growing. Now, this is hard to measure because it takes a long time. And so if you come as a funder and say, how many entrepreneurs did you impact this year? You can't, it's hard to tell. Okay. So this is where it requires a different mindset and very different types of funders who believe in you and believe that, and will be patient with you for 3 to 4 years till you can show real outcomes, which is number of businesses growing, number of new businesses started, what's happening to the GDP of this whole place.
So these are fantastic numbers and truly amazing scale as well. Any stories that come to mind where you realized that something had happened that was so unexpected and it truly moved and touched your heart, that your work was able to create that kind of impact?
So, as I said, what is fresh in my memory is my visit to Dimapur and Kohima. And these are these small women enterprises. And they're producing things like, typical things, pickles. Nagaland grows a lot of fruit. And even though it's a dry state, they convert it into mildly alcoholic beverages.
Interesting.
Okay? And so you have, I've met these 3 or 4 young women who are selling about 4,000 750 ml bottles of beverages. Okay? There's this young entrepreneur I met called Vivito. He's a guy, and he is producing some of the highest end coffee in the world. So he's gone and won prizes in Berlin and South Africa for his coffee. The tonnage is small. He's not a mass producer, but he is a connoisseur, and he's measuring his success by the most discriminating customers in the world are willing to pay a premium for my coffee. So seeing such people, seeing our ability to add value by connecting them, that's the main value we add. We connect people to markets, to credit, to each other. So yeah, it's life-changing.
You're giving them the ecosystem that we previously spoke about.
That's right.
You're giving them the ecosystem to be successful.
And you're shaping mindsets. I keep coming back, Shrishti, to how mindset is the core issue that limits all of us.
Absolutely.
Whether it is individuals or whether it is businesses or government or whatever. So the act of being able to list your business on Amazon and transact suddenly gives you so much confidence. And then everybody around you looks at you differently. Okay? Shrishti is now listing and selling on Amazon. It gives you a certain status. And it changes, this mindset shift changes everything. The banker will also now look at you and say, okay, she's now creditworthy. Otherwise, till yesterday, he was saying, where's your husband?
Yeah.
Okay? So I think these shifts are just so powerful. And that's why the stories are more important than the metrics. Okay? So when you say, how do you measure success? It's in part numbers, but the powerful one are these stories of transformation.
Absolutely. And more power to you as you continue on this impact mission. But I also wanted to touch upon your work in the energy space because you have raised funding from prestigious you've raised funding from prestigious foundations across the world and are enabling such a big change even in the energy space. Tell us about what you excited about that and where are you today in that journey?
First of all, it's a we.
There's
almost nothing that I have accomplished on my own. But this actually was born out of the Rockefeller Foundation. I was a board member and trustee of Rockefeller for a long time. And during COVID in 21, Raj Shah and I and the rest of the board were discussing what should the foundation do that is going to be as transformative as our funding of the Green Revolution in 1960s. So it turns out that Rockefeller Foundation was one of the main supporters of Norman Borlaug, Government of India, Dr. Swaminathan's work that resulted in the Green Revolution. And we said, yeah, what have we done that's going to be as game-changing? And we decided to focus on energy access. And then we realized this is such a big thing that we on our own as Rockefeller Foundation are too small. And so we need a coalition of people. And that's how we brought on board other powerful foundations like IKEA Foundation, the Bezos Earth Fund. We tried with Bloomberg and Gates. We're hopeful of them joining soon. And we started out at Glasgow at the COP26 with the announcement that we want to change energy and change lives. And the goals were, as I said, 1 billion people having access to clean, affordable, renewable energy and bend the curve on carbon by avoiding 4 gigatons of carbon. And so in these last 3 years, we've been working in a number of countries, about 14, 15 countries, including India, but many in Africa, in Vietnam and Indonesia and so on, trying to see how do we work with the governments to make interventions that can actually achieve these goals. So maybe quickly I can talk about what we've done in India, what we're doing in India. So look, what we've realized is developing countries are not interested in the climate thing. They're saying, look, this is something created by the rich countries. They have the capital. They need to fix it. So we have to talk about what energy can do for development, for lives, for jobs, and so forth. So in India, we found Maharashtra has a huge power crisis. It's got shortage of power. The tariffs at 12 rupees plus are very high. And one of the reasons why companies, small businesses are leaving Maharashtra is this. So what our India team was able to do is work with these clusters of MSMEs, aggregate their demand, and then find a solar developer, give the financial guarantee, and get them to put rooftop solar on these. So what they are able to do is use solar at 6 rupees a unit when the sun shines. And then they have to pay the other stuff when the sun is not shining. But the blended cost comes down. It's much cheaper than diesel. So this is a fundamental way of making our MSMEs more competitive. Now we've already got 300, 400 megawatts of power that power projects which are being bid out. Okay, and so we want to scale this. Another one is agricultural demand. Farmers have free power generally, but the reality is they don't get much power. The number of hours when the power is there is variable. Frequency is very bad. Voltage is very bad. So they use a lot of these diesel pump sets and whatnot, which is a mess, expensive, polluting. And there's this PM scheme called Kusum, which provides a subsidy for solarizing. But no one's figured out how to do this in a decentralized manner. So again, our India team is able to go to a geography, use geospatial data from satellites to aggregate the demand of these farms, bid it out to a developer, and then send that through the grid. And the discoms love this because they hate that customer. It causes a lot of their losses, this free power. Now they're paying for this solar power. Okay, so it's discoms also like it, farmers also like it because they're getting affordable power, which is reliable. We're doing the same thing in one of the big challenges is as the amount of renewable energy increases, the grid has a lot of problems. It becomes unstable. And when the sun is not shining, you need to be able to deal with it in a different way than turning on a gas plant or a coal plant or whatever. And so our team has worked with the Jaipur Discom, to the Delhi Rajdhani Power, to both create software digital twins of the grid so you can manage the energy more efficiently, reducing losses substantially, or store energy when it's available and then release it when it's not. And now we're trying to develop over 1 gigawatt of these battery storage projects. So these are these interventions that can change the whole renewable game.
Ravi, that's fantastic systems-led thinking because you truly reimagining how these systems have operated, right? Like, and be it for mass entrepreneurship or energy, that requires a very resilient mindset. And, I know that your book starts with Carol Dweck's quote, whose book was one of my favorites because she talks about growth mindset, and there's so much power to that, right? And that's really helped me personally as well. So what goes on what goes behind in terms of building a strong mindset, according to you?
Well, let's first tell as people what that Carol Dweck quote is. She says, I think the one that you're talking about is, the true potential of a person is both unknown and unknowable. And it is impossible to predict what you can achieve through years of passion and toil. I think that's the quote you're referring to. Yeah, and then so I devote a whole chapter in my book to mindset, because it is the most important thing in our lives, because it is the software that runs us. Okay, and so like the software, if you have bad software, you'll have bad outcomes in life, and you can also rewrite and change the software, and then your life changes. So Bill Gates says, what you believe is what you achieve. And I found that for most of us, it is this lack of self-belief that is the most crippling, self-limiting belief. And it's so tragic. It's so tragic. And so I focus a lot in my leadership talks, my writing, etc., getting people to realize there's this invisible thing inside in your subconscious, which really determines how you manifest in the world, how you interact, what you define as success, what you strive for, what you achieve, your capacity for happiness. Everything depends on this mindset, and it's not written in concrete. In fact, it's incredibly elastic. So, so when I look at my own life, when I see myself as a child, it was the most unpromising childhood. And yet when I look back 60 years later, it's been incredible. And that has come from a very intentional focus on self-belief and changing my mind when I needed to. Even if you'd asked me, Ravi, 15 years ago, leaving Microsoft, could you have imagined doing all these things? Chairing the board of Infosys through a crisis, Bank of Baroda, starting the Global Energy Alliance, doing the UNICEF program, etc. No, I couldn't have. But the opportunities came, and I had the courage to seize them and do something. So, so I cannot emphasize enough this importance of mindset, particularly the narrow aspect of self-belief.
I read somewhere that you had a difficult relationship with your mother, and that results in unfortunately a lot of limiting self-beliefs, right? Yeah. So how did you overcome that? Or if someone has been through a difficult childhood, how
my mother was not at all unusual. She was a typical middle-class Indian mom, particularly a Tambra mom. So she lived out her life through the achievements of my sister and me. And nothing was good enough. Okay. So what I lived with this trauma most of my life, which is believing I won't amount to anything. And so I was always on this treadmill of achievement long after she had died. So it's not like she was alive and goading me on or urging me on.
Because your operating system needed external validation.
Yeah, I needed that external validation. And and then I went and saw a shrink, and she helped me cure this issue. It was a trauma. It was an early childhood trauma. So that's how I dealt with it. But you need to go back inside and see what are these limiting beliefs. For each one, it's something different, and heal that.
Yeah. That's a profound note to end the episode with. Thank you so much, Ravi, for joining us today.
Yeah, and I want to compliment you on the extraordinarily detailed research, digging up arcane facts.
I stalked the hell out of you, clearly. But, it is because people like you choose to spend their time with us. We definitely want to make sure that we get the best out of it.
Thank you for this service.
Thank you.